So, hello and welcome to the Indie Author panel. It's great to see you all here, on behalf of myself and our gorgeous panel. I'd like to say thanks for coming. You had a choice what to do today, but you chose here. You chose the right choice, so give yourself a pat on the back. And because you're here, I assume that you're a fan of reading. And I don't know if you heard recently, but there was a survey out, and it said that readers were exponentially better looking than non-readers. And looking around this room today, I can see that that is so true. And looking at our panel, wow, it's so true. My name's Clare Lydon. I'm a writer of lesbian romance. My latest book is This London Love, came out a few weeks ago. And today on the panel we're going to be discussing drama, desire and divas. Drama, because what is life without a bit of drama? And what is a book without a bit of drama? A badly thought out one. Desire, because if we didn't all have a bit of desire in our lives, we might crack out the sad-faced motor ponds, might we? And divas, because, well, we're lesbians, so we like a bit of divadom. And joining me on the panel today are H.P. Munro. Take that. H.P. is an award-winning, best-selling author, and her latest book, Stars Collide, is up for a Goldie next week. All right? Yay! Love with that. Next to her is Sally Edwards. Sally is. Sally's a debut author. Her debut novel came out a few months ago, Out to Love, and it's a story of Charlie, a wheelchair-bound lesbian, and her bound for love in the modern world. And we'll be hearing Sally read from that in a bit. Next to her is Karen Campbell. Karen's had a very busy year this year. She's released one novel, Diary of a Broken Heart. She's working on a second. And Karen is a Scot who lives in Birmingham, and last year won the Planet London New Author of the Year. And last year also, on this panel, I called her Karen Carpenter. I'm going to try not to do that again.
Is she still alive?
And finally, we have Suzanne Egerton.
Yay!
Suzanne lives in Edinburgh. Near it. Motherwell. God, I'm really bad. But she has read at the Edinburgh Festival, right? That's right. And she's also a fan of open mic nights. So I was going to have to say we'd like to wrestle the microphone up later, but we haven't got one, so we won't have to do it. So first up on the reading, I'm going to welcome HP.
Stand up so you can actually hear me, hopefully. My first reading is about desire, a little bit of desire, and it's from Silver Wings, which is my first book. Helen grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her onto the dance floor while the trumpets responded with their section of the song. Helen registered a look of surprise on Lily's face. What, Liliana? You never danced with a fly girl before? Lily laughed. I'll dance with you, but I'm leading. She grinned before twirling Helen under her arm and round to her back, releasing her hand and then reclaiming it with her other hand. They kicked and flicked their legs out in time with the music, twirling, weaving, and spinning each other until they were dizzy. They held each other at arm's length, moving round with one foot planted on the makeshift dance floor, while the heel of their other foot rested on the ground, twisting back and forth as they danced around in a circle. As the trumpet played its solo, Lily pulled Helen close. Their bodies pressed against each other as he stepped in rhythm. Lily's leg nestled in between Helen's as they danced in perfect step. Helen's senses were filled with Lily. She allowed herself a moment to bask in the thought that she was in the arms of the woman she was slowly falling in love with. She mentally shook herself. This doesn't mean anything. We're only dancing, and there's no way that Lily has those sorts of feelings for me. Feeling uneasy at the closeness, Helen pulled away, putting Lily at arm's length again. Lily felt a flash of confusion at the action, worrying that perhaps she'd been wrong to pull Helen in so close. But they'd always been so comfortable in each other's personal space, and she'd enjoyed holding Helen in her arms. It had felt as though the heat that she'd been accustomed to when Helen touched her had surrounded her entire being when their bodies pressed so closely together. Her face flushed as she realised that the pleasure she felt went far beyond that of enjoying a dance with a friend. They stopped as the music ended, The breathing increased, in part due to her energetic dancing and in part due to her being pressed against each other. An awkward tension. Thank you. An awkward tension descended between them as they stood staring at each other, still rooted to the spot where they'd finished dancing, neither willing to move or say anything. "Hey, Lily!" Adele ran up breathlessly, oblivious to any tension between her two friends. "Can you go get your fiddle?" Lily dragged her eyes from Helen to look at the small brunette. "A violin," she corrected. "Sure." She didn't even think to ask why, she was just relieved that she had an excuse to leave. Adele grinned as Lily left them and walked out of the hangar doors. "This is going to be great," Adele smiled, slapping Helen on the shoulders, then headed back into the throng of the dance floor. Helen quickly looked around the hangar and spotted all of the Bay 4 women on the dance floor laughing and having fun. As her eyes scanned the room, she spotted Peggy watching her. The tall blonde shook her head slowly, a worried look on her face. Helen gave her a half-hearted smile, then took a breath and decided to follow Lily. The music from the hangar was playing through all the speakers across the base, so as Helen walked, she continued to be treated to the music being enjoyed by the rest of the base down on the flight line. She softly opened the door to their bay. Lily was sitting on her bed, her back to the door, her violin case beside her. At the noise of the door opening, she turned and looked surprised at Helen, hovering in the doorway. "What are you doing?" she asked. Helen opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Her mind was a maelstrom of motion, and she was not able to pick the words to describe coherently what she was feeling. She swallowed hard and took a step into the room. "I just wanted to see that you were okay." "The dance. I'm fine, Helen," Lily interjected, standing up, knowing that she was anything but fine, and at any time she was close to Helen, confusion grew in her. Helen nodded slowly, unsure what to say next. "Okay." She turned and took a step into the wooden veranda that ran the length of the bays. As she did, the music over the tannoy changed. The saxophone and clarinets that had everyone jumping earlier were now soft and gentle, and playing the soothing melody of Moonlight Serenades. Lily's feet propelled her towards the door. Before she knew what she was doing, she was standing in the doorway with one hand holding onto the doorframe. "Dance with me," she whispered, towards Helen's back. Helen wasn't sure whether she'd heard correctly or whether her mind had simply created the words that she so desperately wanted to hear. She turned slowly, her eyes locked on Lily's. Gradually she let her eyes fall down towards Lily's left hand. She took a step forward and ran her fingers down the back of Lily's hand. Eventually, placing their fingers and lifting their hands up. Drawing her eyes from their hands, she looked deeply into Lily's eyes as she took a half step towards her and slipped her other arm around her waist. Lily lifted her free hand and moving closer, curling her arm around Helen's body, placing her hand on Helen's shoulder as they swayed to the music, their faces millimetres apart. They danced, never taking their eyes from each other, their feet shuffling on the dusty wooden floor of the veranda. The music sped up as the song came to a climax before hitting the final note. They stood unmoving in each other's arms, their breathing becoming shallower at their close proximity. Helen watched as she could see the battle being fought in Lily's mind being played out across her face. Lily leaned in, her lips almost brushing Helen's. As she neared, she felt Helen stiffen in her arms. Suddenly, her nerves hitting like a train at full speed, she pulled her head back quickly. "I should get back. Adele will be wondering where I've got to." She reluctantly removed herself from Helen's embrace and re-entered the bay to collect her violin. When she came back out, Helen had gone.
Well done, HB, for battling the elements. So, do you think that dancing is a good way of gauging if someone's attracted to you? And
God, yes.
Yeah. And what sort of a dancer are you?
I lead with my head. Everything starts there, and then it goes down. Yeah, definitely. I think my top tip for anyone is if you're trying to bump and grind with someone tonight on the dance floor and they're holding your arm's length, there will be no bumping and grinding of any other sort. I think it's a definite thing.
Okay, so it's a good thing for everyone to remember. Next up, I'd like to invite Sally Edwards.
The atmosphere the singer is setting up ready to perform. The DJ has stopped and everyone is quieted down a little. Do you know the singer then? Or is she just some random? No, that's Hannah Macy. She's local. Sorry, that's really distracting. She sings in here at least once a month. Charlie smiles in acknowledgement and takes a closer look at this tall, slim, tattooed singer with jet black hair, wearing tight jeans, t-shirt and waistcoat, and massive boobs. Charlie's eyes nearly pop out of her head. She can't hold in a smile. I know, isn't she gorgeous? All the ladies love her. Wait till you hear her voice too. She's lush, says Stella. Oh my God, she's lush. She's in a band that does a lot of solo gigs in Brighton. She's from here, so I guess it's good for her to come to some gig practice. The door opens again, and in walks this tall, athletic-looking woman with tattoos and hair in a quiff, brimming with confidence. She says hello to different women as she walks to the bar, kisses a few on the cheek as she walks in. Charlie taps Stella on the shoulder and gestures with her head towards this gorgeous woman standing at the bar with hordes of women vying for her attention and offering to buy her drinks. Oh, that's Maria De Rossi. She owns Costello's Italian place on the high street. Every lesbian in the bar wants to get her into bed, and she knows it. Proper cocky. Fit though. I certainly wouldn't kick her out of bed, but I wouldn't want to be a girlfriend. I'd be too jealous of all the other women. There's no way someone that gorgeous could be faithful, so I wouldn't go anywhere near her. But nice to look at. Charlie, you've gone as red as a letterbox. Are you all right? Yeah, of course. Silly, sorry. Must have zoned out there for a second. Where were we? Charlie allows herself one last glance over Stella's shoulder towards the bar, where Maria stands, drinking a beer. Mid-glance, Maria turns round and looks straight at Charlie. She smiles, raises a pint, and mouths, "Hi." Charlie smiles back, and there it is, bang! She looks straight into the most beautiful, sparkling blue eyes you've ever seen. She has no idea to get eyes that blue. She feels her stomach do somersaults. Whoa, this woman is beautiful. Charlie hears this blinding song. It's not the same when I look in your eyes. But just then, she realises she's staring at Maria like a child staring at her presents on Christmas morning. She just seats herself in her seat and takes a drink. The group carry on chatting and enjoying the music for a while. Then Charlie feels the presence of someone near her. Stella and the others go quiet and smile at Charlie. Hiya ladies, how are you doing? You having a good night? Hi Maria, how are you doing? Not seen you for a while. Night off, is it? Stella giggles. Yes, I've just taken on a new chef part-time to give myself some extra time off. Not too sure if it's going to work out yet, but I'm giving him a month's trial. So who's your friend? Not seen you before. Hi, I'm Maria DeRosa. And you are? Charlie bundles her way through the crowd to the front door of the Unicorn before Stella and the girls have the time to get their belongings together. She looks for a bouncer to help her out of the car, and she gets a tap on the shoulder. Maria is behind Charlie's chair looking angry. Here, hold on tight. I can do this on my own. Why does it take two men to do the simplest of things, for God's sake? You hold my pint and don't you dare spill it, okay? Or you're buying me another one. What, me? Spill beer? I'd rather lose an arm, don't worry. You done this before, then? Nope, I'm a fast learner. Maria's calmer now. What's the best way to get you down, then? The bouncer arrives and argues with Maria over Charlie's head about the best way to get her out of the bar. Eventually, Maria wins the argument and helps Charlie out of the doorway, almost landing her on the lap of a woman sprawled on the ground, drunk and giggling. Thought I was getting lucky then, says Charlie. Maria laughs. Ha ha ha, I'll sit on your lap anytime, darling, says the woman. Give you a lap dance, alright? Yeah, alright, darling. Charlie nudges Maria. You gotta catch me first as I run the other way, you dog. Oh, bitchy, says Maria. Wow, people like that do my head in. No thought for anyone else but themselves. Must be annoying people like that sometimes. Nah, I just take it with a pinch of salt and walk the other way. They only say things because they're uncomfortable. They don't realise that they're being patronising. I can normally laugh my way out of comments like that. Occasionally I get on the pat on the head, which really pisses me off. I'm 18 for God's sake, not 8. Breathe, Charlotte, she says. Maria kneels down to Charlie's eye line, places a hand on his shoulder. She didn't hurt you, did she? I'll go and have a few words if you want. No, I'm fine, honestly. There's nothing like, that's nothing. I can tell you a few tales of funny things that happened to me on a night out. But thank you. And thanks for the help at the door. Maria stands up and squeezes Charlie's shoulder again. You're welcome, hon. I'd like to hear some of those stories sometime.
Thank you, Sally. That was great. And as this is your first novel, they say that your first novel was your most autobiographic. Is there a lot of truth in that for you?
I would say that there's probably about 75–80% of me and things that have happened to me in my life.
Yeah.
In the book. Obviously exaggerated a few facts and figures. Definitely people within the book, of people that I've come across, members of my family, and influential friends and characters and idols and things like that I wanted to put in the book.
Yeah.
In fact, there's probably about 3 or 4 of the characters that are in my book are in this room. Stand up, no. I'm joking.
Do they know that?
Some do, some don't.
Hands up if you think it might be you.
Yeah, this one being brave. Yeah, there's about 3 or 4.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to invite Karen Carpenter-Campbell to
No songs. So some women like. They will be working, so if I suddenly start shouting, okay. I was trying to think what to speak about, and at the moment I'm writing a book with Angela Peach. I don't think she's here. But if anybody knows her, she's as mad as a box of frogs. So I was trying to kind of out weird her, and I came up with this lesbian dwarf. So I'm going to read you from the story about the beginning of the story of the lesbian dwarf. That's all right, touch me up. So this is chapter 1.
Hello.
All right, you having a good time? Yay! Oh, louder! Yay! Enjoying Lfest? Yay! I'm on the telly. Okay, the beginning of my adventure is no different from the beginning of any adventure, in that it begins with my birth. I, Mavis Street, was a miracle child, according to my dearly departed mother and father, and my birth had been celebrated like the second coming. My father, Terry Street, and my mother, Bathsheba, had been married for 5 barren years before they were blessed with the absence of bleeding, and approximately 9 months later, I decided I wanted to emerge into the world. But I should begin way before that, because a birth is marked by 2 paths that meet and merge, creating lives and new roads. When Terry was in his prime, a 32-year-old hunted spunk, these are his words, my father's prone to hyperbole, and the women draped along his arms like flycatchers. He walked tall, the cock of the dance. He was waxing his moustache over the bathroom sink, giving himself the once-over in the mirror, and nodded his approval. Tonight, Terry, he said to his reflection, fingering his whiskers into an upward curl, you will meet the belle of the ball. Be sure to whisk her off her feet. He had smiled and fetched his most dazzling pantaloons to match his favourite red boots. My dad, Thierry Street, was tall for a dwarf. Some say in dwarfland he was a head and shoulders above everyone else. But that's just the growth of unreliable rumours started by Thierry himself. He stood 4 foot 5 inches, a fact he continually bragged throughout his life. I'm Thierry Street, I'm 4 foot 5, I'll have you know. He was wont to be heard staggering from various drinking establishments in the wee small hours before breaking into football songs. Thierry Street had swaggered in his gold pantaloons and lucky red boots to the local dance hall for the Friday night shindig, and said he'd been lifting a tankard of beer to his lips when his eyes had met my mother's, Bathsheba Grimstead. She had lowered her eyes shyly before sneaking a peek to make sure Thierry was still looking her way. He made his way across the dance floor, fighting, grinding hits and pointy knees to find Bathsheba sucking a straw from her glass of lemonade. I'm Thierry Street, he said. I'm Bathsheba Grimstead, she replied. He ducked an elaborate bow, where he claimed his chin shaved the floor and rose beaming widely at my mother. May you take my hand, he asked. I will, Bathsheba answered, still shy. I mean take my hand in marriage, Thierry clarified. Bathsheba had been stunned, stating it was too soon to give answer to a question of such magnitude, and had decreed she would give a year or nay to Thierry Street before the clock struck midnight. Her most treasured book was Cinderella, and Thierry had the cut of a dashing prince about him that she could not ignore. She told me once that as soon as she saw his red boots, gold pantaloons, brown leather waistcoat and curled moustache, she'd known he was the half-man for her. He had golden eyes, and they had shone into her soul, 2 nuggets of gold that demanded her adoration, beaming out from his shaggy blonde hair. He was always a maverick, your father, my mother told me when I was little. That's where you get it from, she explained. You're like Thierry in miniature with your bewildered eyes and voice of honey. Every dwarf has one beautiful thing about them that can bewitch the big people. It's a secret we keep from them. Your father only had to look and glint his eyes, and people became putty for him. But he's never been unkind. You're able to do that with your voice, Mavis Street, Bathsheba told me. What's your secret, Mummy? I'd asked. She winked. That's for another day. When midnight had come that first night, Bathsheba had known beyond a shadow of a doubt that Thierry was the man to love her for the rest of her life. You'll have to convince my dad, Bathsheba had told him, breathless under a lamppost at the end of a road, as she let Thierry hold her up in his arms. But you're saying yes, he asked, making sure his eyes were shining in the light of the lamp. Oh yes, breathed Bathsheba weakly. Then, my darling, I shall call upon your father tomorrow and beg his permission if I have to, Thierry declared, full of pomp. Bathsheba smiled, but inside her heart had trembled, knowing lesser men had stuttered before her father and had felt the toe of his boot upon their backside as they were shown the door. The best for my only girl, Grandpa Hallow had said to Bathsheba, proud as he was to have such a beautiful daughter. Grandpa Hallow had been a man of few words, but all knew he loved his wife Margistan and his daughter beyond the ends of the earth. Love did not need words for these things. His hair was silver and spread down his back, and his beard spread down his front. His eyes were still alert amid hair and aching muscles, and he was content to read his papers in front of the fire with his pipe, waiting for the right man for his Bathsheba. Only then could he die. When Thierry Street had walked in, straightening his back to his full height, and turned his glimmering gold eyes on Hallow Grimstead, there had been an unseen battle. He saw my strength, Thierry boasted. He wanted me married off, Bathsheba snorted, and Thierry had laughed with her, grabbing her hands to dance around her rug in front of her fireplace while they retold their tale to me. Thierry laughed. I still got you to marry me, my angel, and he kissed Bathsheba while I filled the nappy that cushioned me to the floor and whooped with the delight I saw in the faces of my parents before me.
Hello.
Hi. You have sound.
Yeah. So, Karen.
Yes.
Hello again. You've written a supernatural thriller, A Diary of a Woman Diagnosed with Cancer, and now are writing a book about a lesbian dwarf. So you refuse to be pigeonholed.
Yeah. Don't forget the lesbian in the mental hospital.
Oh, the lesbian in the mental hospital as well. So, should I ask what goes on in your mind? Okay, I won't do that.
A lot of alcohol.
Yeah. And what made you decide to write about Lesbian Dwarf?
Well, I was, as I said, I was trying to out-weird Angela Peach, and
That's a big feat.
I saw a road sign, and I thought, I'm going to give somebody a name that could be on a road sign, and I came up with Mavis Street. And then I started to think about this, and I thought, I can write a book about a dwarf, you know, and her fantastic family and the adventures that she gets up to. And she has a best friend called Sven, who's a Swedish fisherman that's 6'6", and she falls in love with she falls in love with a princess that she has to go and rescue. And but I don't want to give too much away, but you know, it's brilliant.
And when is that coming out? When is that coming out?
When I finish writing it,
Okay.
I haven't finished.
Okay, next
Thank
up,
you.
I'd like to invite Suzanne up to the stage. Up to the mic.
Right, I'm starting with the theme of diva, possibly not in the way you were expecting. Fiona suddenly felt suburban and ordinary. The whole place seemed to be shifting like a kaleidoscope. People moving up and down the walkways between tables, stopping, talking, laughing, drinking. How on earth was Ellie going to find her with this lot going on? She ordered a whiskey to damp down her fluttery stomach and stood at the bar for a while, absorbing the atmosphere and listening to the animated babble of 100 or so voices, all sounding excited and all striving to be heard. She watched two women greeting one another effusively in the aisle at the far corner and wondered if they were straight or gay. The willowy brunette stood over 6 feet tall in her stilettos, wearing a tight purple evening dress, her face immaculately made up to a doll-like prettiness. The other was honey-skinned, but clearly had some Afro-Caribbean ancestry. Her close-cropped hair was dyed an unfeasible golden yellow, and huge earring hoops jiggled as she laughed. No, these two couldn't be lesbians, too girly by half. The brunette suddenly gazed upwards and clasped her hand to her chest in a dramatic gesture. Fiona smiled, noticing the Adam's apple in profile. She glanced at her watch. 20 to 9. What now? Sit and wait to be found? She scanned the place, looking for someone who might be Ellie. What would she be like? She sounded very foie on the phone, and Fiona's mental picture of her was distinctly at odds with anybody she could see in this melting pot of a place. Taking a deep breath, she decided to move through the melee and make a circuit. It would feel less awkward than sitting and waiting. She shuffled through the throng, glancing at each table, a half smile on her face in readiness. Of course, Ellie might not come, or she may have been held up. She sounded a very busy character. What if there had been an accident on the way? From behind, a hand landed on her shoulder and squeezed it. "Fiona!" exclaimed Ellie's voice. About 50p's worth of famous grouse slopped over the rim of the glass as Fiona jumped in surprise. Turning, she found herself looking into a pair of espresso dark eyes and a dazzling smile. It was the woman with the yellow hair and the big earrings. "Ellie," she said, trying not to look as thrown as she felt. In fact, it was hard not to smile back in the face of that high-voltage grin. She added quickly, "Hey, you are good. What if it hadn't been me?" "I would have apologised charmingly and chatted you up, of course," said Ellie. "No, I was pretty certain it was you. Body language, you know. Now, I'd like you to meet my friend Desiree. Desiree, this is Fiona." Fiona put out her hand to shake, but the drag queen, quite beautiful in close-up, embraced her and kissed the air either side of her head. "Well, hello, Fiona," said Desiree in a breathy drawl. "So how long has this been going on, huh?" "You cheeky baggage," said Ellie. "We've only just met, as well you know. A beautiful friendship, potentially, if you don't bollocks it up before it starts." Desiree slipped an arm round Fiona's waist and drew her close. "Hey, hen, you listen to your auntie," she said. You need to know that there's an awful naughty lady you're getting yourself involved with. She's already went and broke more hearts than Celtic's goal record. And it's my opinion, by the way, that you're way too good for her. And that's the truth. Fiona laughed as Ellie said, God, Desiree, you old tart. I was going to ask you to have a drink with us, but now you can just bugger off. Such a lady, sighed Desiree, rolling her eyes. A wee brandy would be fine, thank you, dear. Amused as she was, Fiona was a little concerned that the evening might turn into a fascinating but counterproductive threesome. But Desiree glanced at her watch and exclaimed, Oh my God, wait a fucking game. Pardon my French, ladies. But I need to go. See you later. And off she went.
I can't get the mic out the holder, so I'm just going to Suzanne, that Scottish accent was pretty good, pretty impressive. My question was, when I was reading that, it was very in Scottish dialects, very Irving Welsh. Are you a little bit worried that readers might be put off or not understand?
No, not at all. A writer has to respect the reader in all cases. It's a bit patronising to think what the reader will understand or not understand. My dearly beloved other half, who is supporting me at the middle table there, she was brought up in a rat-infested tenement in terrible poverty, and yet she read her way through the whole of Enid Blyton. Now, how can you relate? How can you relate a city kid who's barely ever seen a cow to a bunch of middle-class kids going off having adventures, snarfing out ham sandwiches and lashings of ginger beer? It's just not on to assume that your readers will not be quite up to what you're writing, and I think it just shows some respect to just go for it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And now we're going to go back along the line. So, HP.
This should be fun. Look at that. Give it a go. Okay, for my second reading, it's from Stars Collide, which is, I should have actually said the first one was actually set during World War II, and it was ladies who were flying for the US Army. So in terms of biographical for a first book, I have never been in a war, flown a plane, etc., etc. Anyway, this one is set in Hollywood.
So is this the one that's biographical then?
Obviously. Absolutely. Put my glasses on so I can actually. So how many of these are we making, Jordan asked, as she looked around Freya's kitchen. Pumpkins in various states of carving covered every available surface. Both Jordan and Freya's hands were dyed orange from carving out the innards. I'm not sure. I've never really done this before, Freya admitted, as she pushed her hair from her brow and surveyed her kitchen. I've gone too far with the pumpkins, haven't I? Jordan pulled her close. No. Seeing Freya's look of disbelief, she bit on her top lip. Okay, maybe just a little. Maybe eating pumpkin soup for a while. However, this is, and was, a good idea. She kissed Freya slowly, smiling as Freya moaned and deepened the kiss. Now, ladies, you know the rules. You should be 2 feet apart at all times and lips nowhere near each other, Dan said playfully as he swept back into the room. He ignored his friend's glare as she disentangled herself from Jordan. So I've been going through your wardrobe to see what I could steal as my costume for tonight. You've what? Freya asked, her eyebrows arching dangerously. Oh, relax, you've not got anything in there that surprised me. You forget, I helped you move too many times not to recognise the toy box that, he waggled his fingers in air quotes,
Has to go in the car, mustn't go in the van, and don't let anyone in my family open it. He grinned over at Jordan. You are going to be in for a whale of a time, sweetie, once this whole laying low charade can be forgotten about and the clam jam is over. Anywho, your wardrobe is a veritable desert for suitable costume ideas. Apart from this, he held up a triangular hairpiece. I was thinking I could use some Tolkien-esque character. He placed the hairpiece against his chin and struck a thoughtful pose. You know, one ring to unite them all, or whatever the hell they say. What do you think? Is that a... Jordan started to ask, but stopped when Freya placed an orange-tinged hand on her forearm. It is, and I'm going to enjoy every second of this. Dan, do you know what American is? Sounds like you're trying to say American in a woeful attempt at a southern accent. Never take up acting, he grinned. Funny man, Freya deadpanned. American, my dear friend, is a pubic wig. Dan's mouth gaped open in shock. Pubic? He repeated neatly. Then, remembering he was still holding the wig to his chin, he let out a shrill scream and threw it on the floor. Why? He asked, his entire body shuddering as he walked around in circles. Why would you have one of those? Well, remember when I was in the revival of Hair back in London? Well, when I left, they gave me my American as a leaving gift. Dad's horror rose further. You've worn that, he screeched, pointing at the offending article on the floor. Against your lady bits! Every night for 2 months, Freya grinned. You're welcome to borrow it. Before Dan could splutter a reply, Anna entered the house. Ah, good, you're in. What the hell happened here? She asked, casually taking in the sight of close to 100 pumpkins. I'm having a Halloween party tonight. Anna looked as surprised as her tightened facial muscles would allow. You're hosting a party? She looked from her granddaughter to the others present in the kitchen. Daniel, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that, Dan replied with a nauseous look on his face. And lovely Jordan, so good to see you again, Anna said. I don't know if you remember, as you had quite the night, but we first met when you won your Tony. Of course, all that was before you and Freya started to shag, and interjected, hoping to exact some revenge for the American incident. I was going with date, Anna said dryly, shooting Dan a look, ignoring his muttered, that would require an actually going on a date. She returned her attention to Jordan. I hope that you liked your birthday gift. Jordan nodded dumbly, still not quite able to reconcile that the Anna Connor knew who she was. So Freya, this party, who are you using for catering? Seeing a pained look appear on Freya's face, she winced. You have arranged for food, haven't you? Or are you planning on feeding your guests with these pumpkins? Freya shook her head furiously. This is why I don't host parties. I'm dreadful at it. Jordan took her into a hug. It's okay, we can sort something out. Don't start to panic. Smiling, Anna rubbed her hands together. You know, it's been years since I threw a party. Leave it to me. She turned to leave, then slowly turned back. Freya, not that I'm overly bothered, but if you have decided to finally put your mark on the place and redecorate, you should know that I haven't had anything fur in the house since the 70s. She pointed at the American on the floor. But if you must have a rug, you should go for something bigger than a rodent.
So, HP, how did the idea of merkin arise in your book, and do you have one?
Personally, no, it's not. It actually wasn't in the first draft. It came much, much later, and it came as a result of, I saw an interview, and I think it was with Lucy Lawless, after she had filmed Spartacus. They gave her unused merkin at the time in a frame as a gift, as you do. And then she apparently had to go back for some refilming, and they said to her, see that merkin, can you have it back again, please, because you're going to have to wear it now. So she had to give the gift back, and that's where it came from. I just thought it was so unusual. I've always loved the word ever since the L word, but it just struck me as being something really strange, given that, you know, it's not like you can't grow your own.
And one other thing, you're terrific at working humour into your novels. Is it something you have to work at, or does that come naturally? Are you just terrifically funny every day? All the time? Good to know.
No, sometimes I actually have to remind myself that there should be more plot and not just lots of funny things that come into my head. I'm like, how can I make that? And no, it's not going to happen. Yeah. So, cool. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And now it's over to Sally again. That's better.
centre, even in Wembley. I mean, hello, Lfest. I've always wanted to say that. Is that okay? Yeah, you can hear me. All right, good. A group of about 6 wander off down the street. This is Charlie's first real adventure around the city, and she looks around with wide eyes, stopping occasionally to look into shop windows. Within 15 minutes, they arrive at the front door of a rather dull-looking pub. The only colour on display is a giant rainbow flag draped from the bay window. Charlie noticed a poster advertising live music on a Thursday night, drinks half price before 9 p.m. After negotiating with the bouncers about how best to get Charlie in, almost tipping her out as they tried to lift her completely off the ground like some kind of Egyptian queen on a throne, they finally get her to the bar and Charlie takes a good look round. The Unicorn is an old building, a bit worn out, but with the new owners they've obviously done all they can to modernise. There are posters on the wall of half-naked ladies, t-shirts for sale behind the bar, and the music playing by the DJ is deafening. Charlie smiles as she looks around at the talent on show. She could get too used to this place. The girls go ahead and find a tiny table in the annex to sit at. Where are the loos? Charlie asks. Just through there on the left, next to the pool room. Want me to come with you and give you a hand? Not sure if the door's wide enough. Stella opens the door to a room with 2 small sinks and another door at the far end, which isn't wide enough to get a wheelchair through. This is the toilet. Charlotte wheels herself right into the doorway. Shit, that's not good. Sorry, Charlie, shall we go? Charlie smiles with a I knew it kind of look. She has become accustomed to places not having proper wheelchair access, toilets that weren't built specially, and those that were, the staff would use as a store cupboard, or for which the magic key had been stolen. If you were lucky enough to get in, the bins are often overflowing with used continent aids, which hadn't been emptied for ages because the cleaners, well, didn't think there was much point really, because not many people use them anyway. Under her breath, Charlie sees at this thought, but smiling up at Stella, she says, "No, it's okay. You just go and close that first door and stop anyone else coming in. I can manage. It's fine, really." Charlotte goes into the loo and manages to take a huge jump from chair to toilet, almost slipping as she does, due to the fact that the toilet seat had been broken. When she finishes, she realises the hand dryer on the wall is too high, naturally. So she shakes her hands and wipes them on her jeans again, seething under her breath. She greets Stella, who is playing guard by the door. "Oh, wow, that's better. I needed that. Manage okay, did you?" "Yeah, fine, honestly. I've had to cope with worse than that, believe me." They make their way back to the bar and sit at the table where the others are getting well and truly drunk and messing around.
So, Sally, you hatched the idea for this novel 2 years ago at Lfest. So, for your next novel, have you had any ideas so far this weekend? Have there been any dramatic events that are going to make it in?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because everything actually on site for me personally has been really, really good, but on the morning that I really needed to be prepared and be really quite relaxed and together today, we had a problem with accessible taxis. I'm actually not staying on site, I'm with my partner and we're staying in a hotel. We couldn't get a wheelchair accessible taxi here, but for all sorts of very strange reasons, of which I won't go into detail. But it was incredibly stressful, so I ended up having to come here on my own because I can transfer into a normal taxi cab. Came and arrived on site in floods of tears. "Oh my God, it's the book day, and I can't get my partner here." Really upset, frustrated, nervous anyway. So then I went over to see the crew over in the accessible camping area, and they said, "No problem, we'll sort it, leave it with us," and it was dealt with.
Awesome, that's very good.
But it's those things like that happen all the time.
Yeah. But there's definitely another book on the way, is there?
At least 2.
At least 2. And do you think that you've learned anything from writing the first one?
Oh gosh. Yes. Be brave. If you have an idea or a concept for a particular conversation and you think it might be to this, to that, whatever, put it down on paper first. Don't stop yourself from doing it. Put it down on paper first. Get feedback from it, and then make a decision. But be brave.
Yeah.
And learn to accept feedback, and just always have a pen and paper handy.
Yeah.
'Cause you never know when you're going to get inspired.
Writer's Toolbook.
Yeah, I mean this weekend alone has just given me so many ideas for so many characters and scenarios and ideas.
Yeah.
So it's always be prepared for that brain to have an idea. Cool, because you never know.
Thank you very much. Next up, Karen.
So for my second reading, I kind of thought, what am I gonna do? And I thought about the title, the drama and the divas and desire, and I thought, oh, desire, I'll do that. I've got a story called Heart's Desire. It's a short story, but I've reduced it for this particular bit, and the narrator in it has a special gift where if she runs her fingertips down your face, she can see what's in your heart and what's your heart's desire. And it made me think about my heart's desire. And after the girlfriend, it's my dogs.
Sometimes an element.
She's first, then the dogs. Just. And I thought I was the only lesbian that had a dog, and I've seen loads. And does everybody have a dog or a cat? Hands up if you got an animal that you love. Right. Well, this is a story about my character and her dog, or his. You don't know whether it's a boy or a girl. It's the narrator and the dog. So, I've only ever held 2 things in my heart by the yearning of desire. The first was when I was 10. I begged my mother for a dog. Any dog, I wasn't fussy. I found it hard to make friends in those days, so I wanted a dog to wag its tail when I got in from school, that could guard me at the end of my bed as I met sleep unshielded, and it would fetch a stick if I threw it. I made it the happiest dog in the world. It was ugly and skinny, with coarse black hair and one ear larger than the other, but when I slid my hand over it, our worlds collided into a language I could understand. Food, I heard, and I would feed it. Pee, and I took it out for the toilet. Save your love, and I held her in my arms and cuddled her jangly bones into my stomach, where the warmth would give save your love to the animal that looked to me for the way it lived. When we walked and it saw a cat, the hair on its back rising like a fin, I stood in front of her eyes and I said, it's just like you, but not like you. Someone like me loves it. And I stroked her face. Her fin went down and her heartbeat matched the steady breaths I took. What more could you want when you have a dog? She willingly gave me her heart's desire every day, trusting me to be good, and when I was good, she wagged her tail. Someone should have told me that women were not like dogs. I took the idea of love and threw it into a box when I was younger, having felt the longing and unhappiness in my mother, and I'd locked that box with the biggest key I could find. Love was too dangerous to unlock. Until my dog came bounding over to me. I watched the love in her eyes, the happiness in the flap of her ears, and the measured joy every muscle had as they stretched and contracted. Closer to me. Love brought her closer to me. I gulped a lump down in my throat when the years had passed. I'd noticed her gallops had slowed to trots, and that she no longer leapt, the springs in her legs rusting. I turned my mind from this, refusing to consider the possibility of what would come, hearing the whispering of my fear when I closed my eyes each night. Give me another week, I would beg something invisible in my mind, and when I got that week, I would beg for another. I stroked her hair and listened to her panting. My fingertips would tremble above her face as she lifted her sad eyes up to me, and I would retract my hand because I couldn't hear it just yet. In another week, maybe. I lay on the floor beside her as she slept, grateful for every heavy thud of her still beating heart while I tried to still my own. We took shorter walks and her tail still wagged, so I held Hope close to me until the day came when I could no longer keep my eyes shut to her pain. I saw her fight to get her legs to hold her up, the flash of pain in her eyes as they sought mine and beseeched. There was no hesitation as my hand clasped her face. "Tell me, dog," I said. "I've had enough now, Saviour. Let me go," she told me. I thought that was when my heart broke, but it wasn't then. It was just the beginning. It began with a memory. That's all heartbreak is, the longing for those memories one more time. The first memory was the day I held her in my arms as a skinny, shivering, stinking pup, and I wrapped my coat around her. "Saviour, love," her weak voice had rasped, and she'd looked at me with a love that sprang from nowhere and never once wavered. Even when I told her off for plopping on my bed, she had hung her head, let her unruly ears clamp to her head, and told me, "Sore belly." I'd sighed and got on my knees to meet her eyes, holding out my arms, and she'd slunk over, a small wag finding its thump against my leg. I carried her to my car, as I'd carried her from my mum's car 14 years ago, a ragamuffin bag of bones who'd felt the wind on her face as she chased balls and sticks down the years. As I drove to the vet's, I felt the stare from the passenger seat and I swallowed down a marble in my throat. I took my hand off the steering wheel and patted the dog. "Don't leave me, Saviour, love," she said, and I thought I would choke. "Never," I told her. I pulled into the vet's and helped her get her forelegs steady on the ground to make the slow walk to the execution chamber. I had to be brave to show my dog there was nothing to fear and that her pain would be taken away. She sat beside me with trust. When we were called in, I opened my mouth to speak, and instead a dam flooded open behind my eyes. I tried to swallow, and that marble of grief grew like a grapefruit. Vets see this thing all the time, I'm sure, and he asked me if I wanted to stay. I nodded as my hand gripped her lead tighter. When you take in an animal and accept their love, you're promising to never abandon them. I lay her down and I knelt, stroking her black hair, knowing her cold nose would not wake me up any more mornings. I stroked her face, but her eyes told me everything I needed to know. "Thank you, Saviour, love. Thank you for my life and for being here." I would have answered, but my throat was closed and I was blinded by waterfalls of sadness. "Give me another day." As the injection took hold and her eyes shut forever, I opened my mouth and my anguish poured out. She raised her eyes one last time to me. "Goodbye, Saviour, love," she breathed into sleep. I wailed because my dog was dead and every love string inside me was snapping in two. Her body froze and her last sigh was sighed, and I did not need to be told that her heart, which had beat so fiercely, was now still. There was no echo in my fingertips. The one voice I could always turn to was silent. I sat in my car and on the passenger seat laid her collar and lead down. They lay empty where moments before they'd held her life. I let the shakes take over my body. The endless rivers of tears ran down my face and an agony clutched me. It was the call of grief screaming as it recognised me.
Thank you, Karen, and I know you've got many of the audience tearing up. And it does show, yeah, and the panel, and it does show the many types of love and desire we have in our lives. So in real life, you said you've got 3 dogs. Are you a dog whisperer in real life?
They don't do anything at all. My dogs, I've got 2 Labradors and a 57 Heinz variety, and they don't do they do what they want, but I don't care as long as they're happy. You know.
And I was going to say as well, it struck me when I was listening to that your writing style is quite poetic. Are you a fan of poetry in reading as well? No? No? Okay then.
I can't write it. I mean, I used to read it when I was younger, but I don't read poetry now. I don't have a lot of time to read, so when I do, I want to read the novels that I like. So, but thank you. That's a nice compliment.
And thank you, Karen. And for the second time, I'd like to welcome Suzanne.
Right, this extract is I've called it Blind Date, and Fiona from the last extract is now known as Finn. Go on, do it. Finn woke with a jolt. It was dark, but Cecilia was all too evidently in the bed beside her, and Cecilia's hands moving over her body with unexpected finesse. Finn drew breath to tell her to stop and groped for the hands to push them away, but at that moment Cecilia's mouth pressed down on hers and she felt her tongue writhing around her own. Cecilia's hair lay over her face and Finn almost snorted in her need for air. She knew she must sound as if in the grip of passion, but was trapped in the depths of the pillow. Cecilia's tongue began wiggling, tickling her palate. Appalled, Finn realised she was in some danger of enjoying the sensation. Get a fucking grip, she told herself, and arched up and sideways, finally dislodging both the invading hands and mouth. Stop it, said Finn. I thought you'd like it. You did like it. No, said Finn. I didn't. It was kind of you to offer me a bed for the night, but I really do need to sleep. So if you'll just go back to your own bed, please. You're in it. There's only one bedroom. Oh, shit. Finn was dog-tired and could feel the beginnings of a nagging pain in her head, probably due to the cheap brandy warring with the wine she'd had at the party. It's all right, said Cecilia. Just stay, I'll leave you alone. Too shattered to argue, Finn collapsed back on the pillow and slept. Strange, violent, frightening, heavy, a heaviness, shaking and pushing her downwards, a roaring shouting sound, louder with every repetition. As she surfaced, Finn opened her eyes and was confronted at close quarters by a face, not Cecilia's. The face was big, ruddy, the mouth wide and blasting her with hot breath. Bastard! 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 It shouted with every rough shake. But what the hell was going on? Confused, she could just make out a thin, high wail, definitely Cecilia, begging, "Stop it, Bar! Stop it!" at intervals. But this couldn't go on. Tightening her abdominal muscles, she yelled with all the force of breath her diaphragm could expel. Oi! It had the desired effect. The shaking ceased, and Bar jerked back from her labours. Finn swiftly whipped the covers aside and leapt out of bed. She was about to ask what the hell Bar thought she was doing, but to her surprise, the woman charged forward with a shout and pinned her to the wall. More alarmingly, she raised a fist beside her head with the obvious intention of crashing it into Finn's face. It had been a long time since the combat classes, but blocking moves had become second nature. Finn tensed, sweeping the fist aside with her forearm as it came at her. She surprised herself quite as much as her assailant, but still followed automatically up with a theatrical "Hoo-yah!" She quickly realised this would not be enough to halt the attack. Bar's face had scrunched into an aggressive scowl, and she was pulling back her arm to have another go. This time, she wouldn't be caught unawares. Finn gripped Bar's upper arms and realised she could not feel the hard curve of biceps. The arms looked solid, but in fact felt doughy, yielding. Bending one knee so that she could brace the sole of her foot against the wall, she pushed with all her strength, and Bar tottered back a few paces. Finn moved forward and was again seized in a smothering bear hug, in which Bar resumed the shaking technique, shouting, "You! You! You! Bastard!" Now desperate, Finn kicked at her legs, with no effect. She tried a downward blow with her heel on Bar's left foot and put all her weight on the site of the blow. That did it. Bar howled and let go. This was followed by a circuit of the bedroom by her assailant, hopping, limping and groaning. Bar finally sat on the bed, took off her shoe and nursed her foot, rocking in pain. You got my bloody corns, you bastard, she moaned. Finn could now take in her attacker's appearance. Tall and heavily built, but she would have had quite a sweet face when not contorted in anger or pain. She wore a blue tunic with white piping over navy trousers, suggesting an occupation in the caring professions.
I don't know about you, but I think Suzanne should do an audiobook. You got some great action described there, Suzanne. How easy do you find it to create drama and really convey what's going on in the scene to your readers?
Well, actually, it's a film studio up there. It all begins with character. You've got to get your once you've got to know your characters, and by this I mean you would automatically know what sort of coffee they'd order in Costa. You'd know what their mum was like, and all the little stuff. Once a character is established, you just set them free, and all you have to do is watch, see what happens, and just take it down and tell the story as entertainingly as possible. But there's no story without character. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. There you go. I'm going to finish off with a reading from my new novel, This London Love. The reading concerns Kate, who's the lead protagonist, and she's just met Meg, who she's quite attracted to, in a florist, and she's just going round to her sister Vicky's to tell her that she's just met her. Oh, and she's just ordered flowers for her uncle's funeral. Hello, stranger. Anyone would think someone had died. Vicky gave Kate a hug and invited her in. Yeah, well, I've just sorted the flowers, so that's one less job to do. Kate followed Vicky into the kitchen and hung her jacket on the back of the dining chair as she sat down. Has Mum been on to you today? On to me? All over me, more like, Vicky said, filling the kettle. Her and Auntie Viv were round this morning to see the boys, and then she's been calling me about the catering arrangements, like I'm the fountain of all knowledge on this subject. Kate smiled. Well, you did do Dad's. That's what she said, but that was 5 years ago. Vicky paused. Besides, I don't think food is a top priority at funerals, is it? People aren't turning up for a gastronomic feast. It's not a bloody wedding. She grabbed 2 mugs from the mug tree and set them down on the countertop. Anyway, did Uncle Mike have any friends? Ooh, you're going to hell, Kate said, laughing. Along with me, by the way. I just went to organise Uncle Mike's flowers, and my oh my, the florist is smoking hot. Vicky let out a hoot of delight as she made the tea. I mean, properly gorgeous, but straight too, obviously. Kate shrugged and took the biscuit tin from her sister. Seconds later, Vicky plonked herself opposite Kate at the kitchen table. So, why straight too, obviously? Vicky swept some of her long hair out of her face and eyeballed her sister. You know, Kate replied, she's a florist. Vicky gave Kate a look. And that means she's straight because? Well, how many lesbian florists do you know? Seriously? Vicky looked amused. Look, I know loads of lesbians and not one of them is a florist. So that means no other lesbians can be florists either. You're so close-minded sometimes, you know that? Vicky took a jammy dodger from the biscuit tin and bit into it. I don't think being a florist is a barrier to being a lesbian. I think it might be, Kate replied, deadpan. I'm just saying, lesbians tend to be in certain occupations. Teachers, nurses, designers, writers, mental health, that sort of thing. Florists, they're not high on the list. Vicky took another bite of her biscuit. And you tell me I'm prejudiced? Kate panted. I'm allowed to say these things, I'm a lesbian. If you say so, Vicky paused. But more interesting than whether or not Miss Florist is gay is that you're interested in her, and you haven't been interested in anyone since Caroline. Vicky gave Kate a double thumbs up. Does she have a name? Kate fluttered her eyelids and smiled. Meg. Vicky snorted again. Look at you, Miss Giggly. And did Meg have a wedding ring on? She did not, Kate replied, but then blushed. But I imagine florists wouldn't wear them because they get their hands messy all the time, don't they? Kate shrugged. Anyway, nothing's going to happen apart from Meg's going to give us some lovely flowers for Uncle Mike's funeral, and then I'll never see her again and she can go back to her boyfriend. Let's call him Phil. The end. Vicky stuck out her bottom lip. You're so cute when you like someone, you know that. Anyway, are you staying for dinner? Kate thought about it. What are you having? Probably just a Chinese takeaway, but don't report me as bad mother of the year, okay? Guide's honour, Kate replied, holding up her 3 middle fingers. You weren't even in the guides, you liar. Thank you very much. Right, we've got a few minutes left before we have to pack up, so just wondered if anybody in the audience had any questions for anybody on the panel. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Lisa, you've got a question. No, give it to one of the panel.
Do you get very attached to your characters?
The question was, do you get attached to your characters? Yeah, I think so. I mean, but it's also sometimes good to let them go and start doing something else. I was clearly very attached to Kate from book 1 because I then gave her her own book. So yeah, I couldn't let her go. Yeah, I think when, especially when you're writing, you're very in the moment. What was anybody else think?
Yeah. I always feel like somebody's died when I've finished writing a book because I have to stop thinking about that character. And it's almost like I can't start another one because I have to have a period of mourning before I can move on and create somebody else.
Yeah, actually, Karen and I had a conversation about this, didn't we, on the phone? Yeah, because you said that you had trouble starting to write a new book because you were in a period of mourning.
Yeah. Black.
Yeah. She wore black for 3 months. It's hard. Any other questions? Don't be shy.
Sally, your character in the book obviously had problems. She was in a wheelchair, and you brought out the problems to us, the immortals, very well. How difficult is it for a youngster to go on the scene, say London or any of the big cities in a wheelchair?
Just repeat the question. How difficult is it for youngsters, lesbians these days, to go on the scene in a wheelchair?
It's incredibly difficult. The bigger venues in the bigger cities tend to be okay, but I have to pre-plan where I'm going. If I decide I want to go out for an evening, where I'm going, and I have to hand-pick maybe half a dozen or so different venues that I know are accessible or are okay-ish with a little support if I feel confident enough on that day to ask for help if I need it. But it is incredibly difficult to find venues, particularly in smaller towns, and certainly in the place where I come from, a really small town, where the bars and restaurants are predominantly made out of really old buildings, listed buildings, so you've got regulations there where things can't be changed, can't be made to be accessible. It is incredibly difficult, and I don't experience one night out where there's not some kind of issue. But I think a lot of the way I overcome that is about your attitude, about speaking to venues. If I find that there's a problem with the venue, for example, I was away at a venue with my partner in Glasgow a few weeks ago, and I went into a really nice, spacious, accessible toilet in this restaurant, and they had the hand dryer on the wall, but they had a table with like wet wipes and baby changing mats and things like that, so you had to reach even further up to get to the hand dryer. So I wasn't being unpolite, I was just pointing it out that was an issue for somebody at my height. And straight away the bar lady apologised, went in the back room, came out with spanners and screwdrivers and a whole toolkit. I moved it there and then. Some venues, they're not even bothered. You can ask them and then they don't want to know. But when you get a really nice venue like that that's so accommodating, that makes you want to go back. But there are very few and far between that you can go to.
Thank you, Sally. Anybody else got a question? No questions? All right, well, thank you all so very much for coming to see us today. You've been a fab audience, and thank you very much to my fantastic panel. They've all been fabulous too. We'll be sticking around if you want a selfie with us, because that's going to be worth millions in years to come. And if you'd like us to sign a book, all the books are on sale with Susan at the lovely bookstore back there. If not, see you at the bar later. Mine's a Heineken, thanks very much.